Hello there. Welcome back to All Day the Geek Way. I'm Jet. Hope you're enjoying your day the geek way. Of course. All right. I'm going into spoiler territory about Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, Marvel Studios' Black Widow, the movie, Natasha. Yeah, I'm going to talk about Black Widow. I'm going to involve spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie yet, or you don't want to hear spoilers, just watch my other video, my non-spoiler review, as the one previous to this one. But let's get into it. The movie was not bad. It was entertaining. I don't feel a need to watch it again. It's interesting to see how this movie used music and conveyed its themes, such as family, and also kind of like, it's very implicit. It's kind of a stretch, I'll admit it, but women gaining their free will and individuality from societal norms. And you can see this starting at the very beginning of the movie. Very beginning of the movie, the intro sequence, it shows a family playing out in a little park, probably in their own backyard. And it's a little blonde girl and another little girl with turquoise, like green, blue hair. And the little blonde girl hurts herself. Mama comes out to comfort her. And they all go inside the house for dinner. Well, there's a little banter of the little blonde girl saying like, "Oh yeah, I want mac and cheese," and then the mom's playfully going with it, saying like, "Well, I want caviar and champagne." Well, dinner's getting ready, and they're eating, and David Harbour comes home, and he goes to Natasha first, kind of rubs her head, and just like, "Oh yeah," being a loving father, but eventually going to the mother and saying like, "Yeah, we gotta leave." So there's this whole sequence where they're just like, "Oh no, we're going on this dream vacation that we always wanted to go on." The little girl's like, "Yay!" And the little blue-haired girl kind of caught on and was just like, "Oh no, this day came." Oh, context, they're in Ohio. And they get into the car, they start driving off, and the little girl, so like, "Well, what's going on?" They're just kind of being vague about it. I'm like, "Oh, I want to listen to music." So turn on the radio, and immediately it's Don McLean's American Pie. Now, we know the messages that this movie is trying to convey, especially through the beginning sequences and use in music. Because the song American Pie, back in 2015, the original transcript of the song was being auctioned off. It was auctioned off for like over $1 million or something like that. But neither here nor there. But with the original transcript, Don McLean, because over the years, McLean was like, "I don't want to give away the lyrics. You interpret it how you want. Yeah, I know I'm copping out, but I don't want to interpret it for you." Well, he kind of interpreted it for people after it was bought for that huge amount. And basically he said the song is about the death of the American idyllic, the American ideal, the American like that American dream, that, I don't want to say nationalistic, but that idea that people have of Americans, and what it means to live as an American. But as you get older, that dream sort of fades away. And that's kind of like what's going on in this intro sequence, because for 3 years, this family was actually a fake American family. Turns out they were Russian spies. And you'll learn that it's Natasha is the blue-haired girl, Yelena is the blonde-haired girl, Melina is the mom, and Alexei is the dad. And there's this whole sequence, they get on a plane, and they start escaping, but SHIELD agents are coming in, and police are coming in to try and stop them, but David Harbour is like a master with a sniper rifle, apparently, and is also super strong. They exemplify his strength when he just kind of throws over one of those little backings on a truck, just casually flips it over. Well, anyway, they eventually escape, and they make it into Cuba. The mom has been shot during the plane sequence, so Natasha had to pilot it. And that was really cool, because you see Melina trying to comfort Natasha and being very proud of her. And you see that this fake family unit has some family characteristics. So one of the messages that the movie tries to convey is like, even if their family wasn't real, it felt like a real family. Therefore it is. You don't need to be blood to be family. Oh, classic Disney move. Well, they're in Cuba, and Alexei and Dreykov are having a dialogue while the mom, who has been shot, is being taken away onto the back of a truck. And then they're trying to apprehend the little girls, and Natasha pulls out a gun and points at everyone. And David Harbour is just like, relax, relax. She's like, I don't want her to go to that room. I don't want her to go to that place that I went to. Well, they eventually go to the Red Room. You don't really see this. It's alluded to. But with more of the themes of the movie, here comes the intro credit sequence. And it's all a montage, and it's showing what's going on throughout the United States, as well as Natasha's upbringing into becoming a widow and what she had to endure. And in the background of this intro sequence is a cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit. Now, this cover is done by Malia J. Yeah, Malia J. The original song, if you know the original song, it's done by Nirvana. Kurt Cobain composed, or he at least wrote the lyrics to Smells Like Teen Spirit. And if anyone knows Kurt Cobain, the song sounds very angsty and rebellious because Kurt Cobain, big time, he was against the mainstream. He was hugely against the mainstream. And you juxtapose this with the cover of the song because the cover is a lot more somber, where you have like the angry side from Kurt Cobain, you have the somber side from Malia J. And it's very interesting to listen to because when I first heard it and I was watching that intro sequence, I'm like, what the hell's going on? I don't get it. And it wouldn't be till the end of the movie where I'm like, all right. And it's Marvel Studios finally using subtlety to convey messages about social justice messages, and it's them doing mostly proper corporate virtue signaling. And I'm not making a criticism of it, by the way, and I'm not saying anything about corporate virtue signaling. That's a political thing I don't want to get into. But it's what they're doing. And I got to give credit to the movie. Its use of social justice is far more subtle. Might have heard this in my non-spoiler review, but I'm going to go over it again. Disney has finally taken the hint that overt social justice is ineffective. It's cringe. It's very cringe, I gotta say. And it treats the audience like it's stupid. For instance, let's talk about Avengers Endgame super quick. You remember the sequence where there's like the epic fight at the very end? It's the big finale. It's the third act. And the camera kind of zooms out, but it's showing all the women characters. Like, oh, look at all these women characters. You got Valkyrie, you got Pepper Potts, who's rescuing, you have Shuri. They're about to do some badass things. They're women. They're strong because they're women. Strong women. Like, it really makes a point that they're women. And I don't know, call me a privileged white guy. I don't care. But I remember watching that and being like, okay, I get it. They're women, and they're powerful women, and they're about to fight. Okay. Like, for most people, it's pretty cringe. For a lot of women, it's pretty cringe. Like, from what I've talked to, and this is anecdotally speaking, but it's pretty cringe. But then you compare this to The Mandalorian, the season 2 finale, and it's just like, these 4 people are holding off Imperial units. Oh, it turns out they're women. They're not characterized by being a woman. They're characterized by being characters who also happen to be women. Now, I could go with, with this for anything. But the point being is, through the Black Widow movie, they decide to use subtlety. They're not doing the whole, like, Scarlett Johansson, she's a woman. Now she plays Black Widow, who's also a woman. She's defined as being a woman, and she's a character. Her character is woman. It's like, it's a lot more subtle, and what Disney is doing, or Marvel Studios is doing, and to be fair, I'm actually going to give it to the directors. I don't know if Marvel's doing it. It's basically saying, like, hey, women, you're not subjected to a role. Now, I have a theory as to what the movie's actually trying to convey, and I'll admit it's a stretch. I'm going to go into it later. If you stick around, I hope you want to listen to it, because I find it very interesting. But I appreciate that this movie tried to be subtle. Because last thing you want to do is treat your audience like they're stupid. Like, you can't put the puzzle together. Let me put it together for you. Women? Individuality. Yeah, uh-huh. Right. Don't you get it now? Yeah, you get it. We told you. You're stupid. We're telling you what's right. It's like, okay. And the immediate reaction is like, screw off. And repeating myself, the movie did a good job in conveying its message. A better job. Not as good as The Mandalorian, but a better job. Well, after that intro sequence with Tell It Smells Like Teen Spirit, and if you know the song Smells Like Teen Spirit, it's about being against the mainstream or being against society, you know, teenage angst. But eventually growing up and being like, oh, well, whatever, never mind, which is a lyric in the song, and just kind of conforming to it. And that's why it uses the somber outlook, the somber tone for the song, the cover song. Well, then you get to, what are they in, Morocco? Someone's in Morocco, and the widows are going to Morocco to take down someone who's holding a package. And you see Yelena confronting that person who's running away. She stabs the person with a knife, and she's dying. But the person who's dying grabs a vial. It's a red vial from the package, and then the gas goes out of the vial and hits Yelena in the face. And you see, like, on her face, like, oh my God, like, am I finally back to reality sort of thing? Like, she's conscious of what she's doing now. Well, they kind of explain later that, like, they're conscious of what they're doing, but they can't really help it. Like, they don't have free will to control themselves. Oh, hint, hint. It's a messaging. Well, they're not being subjected to the chemicals in the brain that make it so they have to do Dreykov's will. Will. I don't know why I said that. Will in Russian. Well, Russian tone. You get me. You get me. We're in this together. And so she gains her individuality, and Yelena runs away, and she defects from being a widow. And that's an interesting sequence, too. And you see later that the vials are being sent somewhere. They're being sent to Natasha, our main character. Whoa, the Black Widow. Whoa. And the Black Widow, she goes into a trailer. Some dude is sleeping on it. Turns out this is the aftermath of Captain America Civil War, where the Avengers, the family, is being split, and they're being wanted by General Ross. That's a cool sequence, too, of how she escapes from the clutches of General Ross, who's the head of... Is she the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. at that point? Is he the head of S.H.I.E.L.D.? I think so. Man, I've lost touch with a lot of the Marvel movies, I'm not going to lie. Well, she's in a trailer, and you see her watching a movie. She's watching James Bond. Oh, wow. Illusions. Illusions in this movie. It's like Dreykov is kind of a James Bond movie. Crazy! Well, anyway. At one point, the trailer runs out of gas. She has no power, so she's about to go to a gas station at the same time. Oh, yeah. She's given a bunch of mail, and in the mail is those vials that Yelena sent to her. And as she's turning on a bridge, a freaking rocket comes out of nowhere and blows up the car. I'm not gonna lie, it like caught me by surprise, but also made me laugh. It was kind of really funny. Really, really funny. You're introduced to the Taskmaster. Granted, the Taskmaster was made operational earlier after the Morocco scene, but it's just like now you get to see the Taskmaster in action. You can't tell if the Taskmaster is a robot or a person, but you could see that it has an objective. Go for the vials. And here and there fight Natasha. Natasha gets in the way. The Taskmaster's going to do their thing. Now, if you're a comic book fan, like thinking that the Taskmaster might be a robot, it's kind of disappointing. But we find out later that the Taskmaster is someone else. It is actually a person, but going under the objective, and is also subjected to the influence of Dreykov. And what's cool about the sequence is you not only see Natasha get her butt kicked, but you get to see the Taskmaster in action. She's replicating both the fighting styles of Captain America and her, and Black Widow. Natasha gets thrown off a bridge. Then eventually, that leads her eventually going to Budapest. Not Budapest. Budapest. This is what I mean with the forced humor, is like the one dude who got her the trailer, he's like, Budapest? It's like, Budapest. It's Pest. It's like, okay, move on. Move on from the joke. Like, I need to move on with this sequence. Well, she goes to Budapest, and she's meeting with the person who sent her the vials, who turns out to be Yelena again. And immediately they start getting into a fight. And the fight choreography is really well done. Like, they're throwing each other into walls and the cabinets. Cabinets are breaking. And eventually they're choking each other with curtains. And Natasha says, all right, let's have a truce. So they have a truce, and then they start talking about everything going on. Turns out the building that they're fighting in was the same building that Clint and Natasha hid out on before they blew up Dreykov's daughter. And they had to hold out in Budapest for 10 days. I can't believe I remember this stuff. Well, anyway, widows come to infiltrate and steal those vials. So another action sequence happens. They're trying to escape from the building, and one of the widows drops down, breaks her leg, and is just like on the ground, not able to do anything. And Natasha comes in and is just like, hey, are you okay? I want to help you. And the girl's like, she looks like she's about to attack Natasha with those like wrist things that shoot stuff. She's like, I can't control myself. Dreykov's doing it, and just blasts her face off, like a part of her face off. And I was surprised. Marvel Studios, they showed it. It was pretty brutal. I'm not gonna lie. And they even show like her face is like being destroyed, just practically vaporized. Like someone killed themselves on camera. There was no blood. I was like, dang, Marvel, like that was pretty brutal. Well, you learn more about the vials and how they're able to release the influence of that Red Room project stuff, and they're not under the influence of Dreykov, but there's a whole action sequence in Budapest. And they get out of that, and they have a little sit-down sequence between Yelena and Natasha. And I really like this scene because it's them basically trying to comfort each other more, Natasha towards Yelena. You get a good indication on the sense of humor that Yelena has. And she's wearing this jacket, being like, oh, it's cool, right? It has a bunch of pockets. And they're talking about family. Natasha's like, it's a cool jacket. She's like, right, it's a cool jacket. And it's the first sequence where you see that Yelena has her own individuality. She's able to make her own decisions. She can wear what she wants. She can do what she wants. She has that freedom. She can't have kids, but she's always wanted a dog. It's a really fun sequence because you can also see, as much as Natasha's giving Yelena a hard time, she's also having a lot of sympathy. Don't forget, like, this is the person that she grew up with and considered an actual sister, as much as their family wasn't real. And it was really cool. They have a toast and they start drinking their beers, but it was a really intimate and cool sequence. I really enjoyed it, and I wish there was more like that because it kind of drops off a little bit later, especially after the prison sequence. So there's a prison break sequence, and that's when you're introduced to Alexei again. You get to see him again. And he's getting a tattoo on his back. I don't remember what it says, but he's arm wrestling a bunch of prison inmates in Russia. And he's winning all of his arm wrestling matches, but he's also telling these really hyperbolic and exaggerated and frankly fabricated stories about him interacting with Captain America, saying back in the 1980s, like, he beat Captain America, and one of the inmates, who's bulky, huge looking guy, is like, he was still frozen in the 80s. It's like, oh, are you calling me liar? And has another arm wrestling match, just destroys the guy. Oh, that hurt, you cry. It was fun, and you really get to know more about the character, that he really has this image of himself. He views himself in a certain way, to the point where he'll convince himself that it's true. It's very hyperbolic. It's very exaggerated, and a lot of the stories just aren't true. Like, oh yeah, Captain America's my rival, and I'm sure Steve is just like, Red Guardian, never heard of him. Like, you never get to see that interaction, but you get to know him. Well, at one point, the prison guards call him over, says you have a package, and it's a figurine of the Red Guardian. It has like the like little song sequence, and then the head pops up, and it turns out it's holding one of those ear communicator things, and Natasha is able to talk to him, and it's a fun juxtaposition. in the sequence where you'll see the helicopter Natasha be like, okay, don't make a scene. Immediately, Alexei is making a scene. There's a whole prison riot that happens as he's escaping. She's just like, you made a scene, didn't you? As if, yeah, I know this guy. He's going to make a scene. He's going to do this thing. It's just classic Alexei move. It's just something he would do. And Alexei, he tries to escape. You can tell he's very worse for wear. He's not in his prime anymore. And he's just fumbling, trying to escape. And eventually they do escape. There's like a really fun sequence. You have the prison guards come out and try to shoot them down, but at the same time, Yelena uses a rocket to destroy one of the big machine guns, and it causes an avalanche, and everyone in the prison gets caught in the avalanche except Alexei, Natasha, and Yelena. They escape on the helicopter. Well, on the helicopter, you have a really fun sequence between the three where he's just like, I'm so proud of my daughters. And the other two are just like, you're not even our dad. Like, shut up. You fooled us for the last 3 years. For 3 years, and you pretended to be our dad, and none of it was true. It was just for a stupid Russian spy thing. He's just like, well, yeah, it was boring, but I was proud of you, I guess. Like, Yelena, you became the #1 child assassin, and Natasha, you're an Avenger. Wow, you get to work with Captain America. Woo. It gets very playful at times, being like, they talk about how they can't, Yelena says like, no, we can't reproduce. We got our ovaries taken out, and then she goes into like disgusting detail about how the process works. Like, I remember sitting there, I was like, ugh. And David Harper is like, I get it, like, stop talking about it. So that was pretty fun, I guess, but this is the one point where the humor is very well done. Actually, before I get into that, Alexei talks about how he was sent to prison immediately after everything that happened in Ohio, and he doesn't understand why. And it's never explained. And I think that's for a bigger purpose in terms of messaging about, societal trends. A person who's part of society, who thought they fit the role, but it turns out they were ostracized too. It's a huge stretch. I'll go into it later. But he goes into that, and he starts complaining. And they talk about making it to this one area. And Yelena's like, we don't have enough gas to make it. He's like, no, we do. She's like, okay. And immediately you see the helicopter. And it was funny. It crashes to the ground. It was very well done in terms of comedic timing. And the editing, excuse me, the editing was wonderful. The helicopter just comes crashing to the ground. They just casually walk out and they go to the house that Melina, the mom, she now lives there. She's doing this experiment with pigs. And she has her sniper rifle because she knows that people have infiltrated her property, and she sees her old family. And you can see on her face, there's a little nostalgia moment. And she's just kind of talking to the family, trying to be both professional, but also not trying to show her emotions. And I think I love Rachel Weisz in this. I thought she did such a wonderful job playing Melina, because she shows like it's a reunion she never expected. She's happy about it, but also like she doesn't want to show that she's happy about it, but also like it was all fake. Like, this reunion shouldn't be happening. They all get to the kitchen table and Alexei is just like, oh, family reunion, my daughters and my wife, we're all back together. And it's very playful because Alexei's just like, oh, Melina, you're just as beautiful as you were 20 years ago. And there's this whole flirtation thing going on. It's just like, you've gotten fat. It's very playful, but you could tell like there's some chemistry between them still. Yelena and Natasha are a little bit removed, but the most removed is Natasha. She's just like, we were never really a family. Stop treating us like we're a family. And this triggers Melina. She's like, it felt real to me. I thought it was not the most powerful, but it was a good sequence. Like the whole thing about family, like even though it wasn't actually a real family, it felt real. It felt genuine. And you learn later it was genuine. Like, Natasha viewed Yelena as a sister. Yelena viewed Natasha as a sister. They both felt that they had a mom and dad and that they were genuine figures. Now, Alexei's an idiot. But there's a whole sequence that happens. And before that, you see that Melina's talking about the Widow Project and what happened in the Red Room. Is it called the Red Room? Or am I thinking of Twin Peaks with the Red Room? That famous scene from Twin Peaks. Well, anyway, she talks about how these little girls were essentially groomed to become widows. And she uses the pig and turns off all the oxygen for the pig to see how long the pig could live, essentially. They were just like, okay, like we got the point. Like, they're being controlled. You can do whatever you want with this chemical sequence that you figured out. Like, can you get the pig to breathe? She's like, oh no, we had 11 more seconds to live. Like, that's a good pig. Well, and then the whole family thing happens that I explained, and Yelena walks out of the room into the other room. She says, I want to be alone. And Alexei says, I'm going to go talk to her. And he's in his goofy Red Guardian outfit. You could tell that he gained weight, and he's putting on the Red Guardian outfit. He wants to relive his glory days as the Red Guardian. And so he just kind of gets up, starts walking to the room, and Yelena's just like, I specifically requested to be alone. And you see, like, outside of that room, Natasha and Melina have this very powerful and intimate moment where they're really getting to know each other. And it's like that mother-daughter interaction. Like, there's genuine care. And then you have Alexei trying to calm down Yelena, and it's just falling flat. You see that he's trying to tell the story about how he went fishing in really cold temperatures in Russia, and he caught a fish, but then he started to get frostbite on his hand. She's like, okay, like, I don't care. Why are you telling me this? He's like, you don't understand. Let me finish. My dad had to pee. He had to urinate on my hands to warm my hands up and get rid of the frostbite. As an audience member, you're like, what? Like, this isn't getting anywhere. But it's to get to the overall theme. Like, you know, he was my dad. We didn't want this to happen, but he was doing what was best at the time to protect me and to prevent me from getting frostbite. And it came to such extremes that he had to pee on my hands. He had to R. Kelly on my hands. Oh, God. Dated reference. And then after that, there's another infiltration scene where other widows they surround the house that Melina's at. And then you see David Harper. He gets shot by a bunch of tranquilizer darts, falls to the ground. Yelena starts to run away, gets ready, and she sees Natasha on the ground. And then you see it's Melina. She's like, I'm sorry. And like, she betrayed the family. She betrayed everyone. Oh my God. She's evil. If only this wasn't like a James Bond thing where there's going to be a twist, and it turns out it's actually Scarlett Johansson, and they switched personalities and identities so that Natasha could actually infiltrate where Dreykov was at, and then silly stuff like that. That's pretty much what happens. They're all taken to Dreykov's ship. And you see, like, you think that's Melina talking to Dreykov, and like she's subjected to what Dreykov wants, but Dreykov figures out it's Natasha. And who they think is Natasha is actually in the prison cell next to Alexei. And Alexei's just like, I want to tell you, I'm so proud of you, blah, blah, blah. And it turns out it's not actually Natasha. Some of it gets pretty silly, but suddenly you see Natasha gets out of the... Melina, who's disguised as Natasha, gets out of the prison. She's like, how did you get out? It's like, oh, well, I designed them. It's like, oh, it's Melina. You see more of the attraction Alexei has toward Melina. Not only that, he's just like, Natasha, I want to tell you this thing. Like, I have my earpiece. I want to tell you I'm so proud. I'm so proud of you. And he doesn't have an earpiece. And it kind of mixes humor in. It doesn't really land, to be honest. But anyway, you see the sequence with Dreykov and Natasha. And we learned that Natasha earlier, she blew up a building that they thought Dreykov was in, but it turned out to be Dreykov's daughter, and they thought she was good as dead. Well, you learn that the taskmaster in the corner take off the mask, and it's actually Antonia Dreykov. And she was reimagined from being, you know, a destroyed face from a bomb to a taskmaster. She was also part, as far as I remember, she was part of the Red Room. And they go into, like, she's able to replicate everything and all this stuff. And then Dreykov sends the Taskmaster to take out Yelena, Melina, and Alexei. And Scarlett Johansson's just like, that was a bad idea. Like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, what do you mean it's a bad idea? Like, you can't hurt me. It's like, well, yeah, I can. And she tries to pull the trigger to kill Dreykov. Doesn't work. Tries to stab Dreykov. Doesn't work. Well, it turns out there's like an inhibitor in their nerves in their forehead or something like that that allows her to not be able to hurt Dreykov. And she's aware of it because intermittently you get background sequences before they get into the ship where Melina talks about like, hey, this is what's going to happen. Like you literally, like you have to cut the nerve. You have to neutralize the nerve to be able to attack him. So eventually she'll bash her head into his desk and make it so that she can attack Dreykov. But you learn about Dreykov. He has on his ring, on his pinky finger, there's a ring that holds a key that allows him to control every single Black Widow. It's like, yes, I can control the stock market. I can make it plummet, or I can do this in this area. I can do anything from here. It's very James Bond-esque. Like, I am in charge of everything. I can do anything I want. He's basically like, it's like, oh yeah, I can make or break society. And that gets into the other themes that I think are a stretch in the movie. But let's just make it short from here. She neutralizes herself, beats the crap out of Dreykov. Dreykov controls all of the widows that are on the ship. They all go to attack Natasha, but Natasha is saved by Yelena, who throws a bomb that has all of the red vials that release the chemicals and give the widows freedom. And they go through the whole speech of like, you can do whatever you want now. You're free. You're not under Alexei's control. You don't have to do anything under his control. You're free. And the ship's being destroyed. And as that sequence goes on, Yelena sacrifices herself by destroying an engine, and when the engine's destroyed, everyone on that ship, all of the male guards and Dreykov, they die in the explosion. Natasha wants to save Yelena, and then there's a whole sequence where they're like skydiving, and she magically grabs a parachute. Natasha just grabs a parachute. There's conveniently a parachute right there, and she just jumps off the ship and then saves Yelena. Well, there's a whole other thing that goes on where the Taskmaster and Natasha fight. Sorry if I sound not interested, but I'm just trying to get to the point where it's like all this stuff is happening, blah, blah, blah. Well, the Taskmaster is like, I'm going to fight you, Natasha. And you think it's like a personal vendetta. Well, they take off the mask. The red stuff works on Antonia. And then Antonia is free of Dreykov's control. So it's a very interesting premise of forgiveness as well. Elena had no animosity toward Natasha. In fact, she had more animosity toward her dad because she had no say in how things were going to go for her. Even after the explosion, he's just like, oh no, you're going to work for me now. You're going to be a Taskmaster. But she has free will again. And it was an interesting way to end the movie because, you know, all the widows escape and they're free to do whatever they want. Then director Ross, is he director at that point? Well, Ross like makes his appearance, and then the movie just kind of ends. You go after credits, and then Yelena is going to Natasha's grave because after she sacrificed herself for the Soul Stone, and then you find out she gets an assignment to take out Clint Barton, who was framed for taking out Natasha, even though he tried to save Natasha's life. Oh God, this is a long spoiler review, but if you made it this far, I'm so happy. Thank you so much. No, I genuinely am. I kind of want to go into the stretch of the message that I think they were trying to convey, involving destruction of societal expectations, or in this case, the patriarchy, which is a very loose correlation. I do understand this, but just bear with me for 5 more minutes, and I promise this will end. Now, what I got from the messaging of the movie, I admit, this is a huge stretch. It's such a huge stretch that you can just grab a marshmallow, make taffy out of it, and we're going to sell it at Disneyland. And we're going to make a lot of money. A lot of money. That's how much of a stretch it is. Bear with me. So again, I think one of the major themes of this movie, next to family, was freedom, women having freedom to make their own decisions and being able to take down the patriarchy. Or I should just say society, but it's very distinct in how they message this. For instance, the beginning of it, you kind of have like the American Ideal family-ish kind of thing. Not like the 50s ideal, but you know, a happy family in America, in Ohio. 2 kids, a mom and a dad. They're a happy family, and they're subjected to knowing that that's not actually the case. They had no choice in how their lives were going to go. And Alexei was also subjected to not having a choice as to how his life was going to go. He was sent to prison for 20 years. Kind of to show that even for if men can be considered to be part of the societal norm, there's people in power, and usually it's other men, I guess. I don't know if this is exactly what the movie's trying to convey, but I can easily see this. I can easily see this because you see, again, with the ring at the end of it, and Alexei's like, I have the key to everything. I control everything. All these girls, I've groomed them to do whatever I want. I made them fit their roles, and they do whatever it is for me. I'm the person in power. And then when the gas is used on the widows, they say, like, you're free to do whatever you want. And they're not overtly like, he's a man, they're women, this is a clash, like in ideologies or stuff like that. It's more of like an implicit, like, hey, you're told to do these certain things. You're expected to do these certain things. You don't have to do those. You have your own free will. You can do whatever you want as a woman. And you're going to have people that support you, like Alexei. You're going to have other men that support you. Like, do whatever you want. Do what makes you happy. You aren't subjected to someone else's will. You can do whatever the hell you want. I see that being a very plausible message, especially from the sequences at the beginning of the movie. Again, American Pie, and especially Smells Like Teen Spirit. This is the point. Like, when I got this message in my head that this is what Marvel Studios was trying to convey, immediately I was just like, that's why they played Smells Like Teen Spirit. Because there's angst against societal norms. There's angst against the mainstream. You don't have to be subjected to what the mainstream tells you. Do whatever the hell you want. You have your own free will. I mean, of course, within moral grounds, and don't kill people. Don't destroy the patriarchy. I don't even know if patriarchy was a thing that the movie was trying to convey. It was just very peculiar that all the people on Alexei's ship, all the guards and Alexei, those were all men, and they all had their own free will, essentially. Those other men worked under Alexei, but the widows were the ones that were being controlled. They were being sequenced to do certain things. They were being ordered to do certain things, and they had no choice but to go with those orders. But then they were given freedom. They were shown the light. They smelled the chemicals. They were released from their cage in their brain. I guess. I don't know. But did we make enough taffy? Is this enough of a stretch? Because I'm convinced this is one of the major themes that the movie was trying to convey, and I'm glad it did it subtly. You could still come to your own conclusions. And with all this said, like how to try to convey it, like I got this at the last act, like this messaging. This is where I kind of got it from. I was just like, okay, how are they doing this? Okay. So I was right. That sort of thing. And then you also get into the end, like, we were a real family. We were a real family. Like, as far as I know, you are my sister. We're a real family. We're family. You're my dad. You're my mom. You're my sister. I'm Natasha. I'm Scarlett Johansson. We're family. So yeah, the movie was all right. It was entertaining. Not bad overall. I don't need to watch it again. I think it conveyed what it needed to convey. I'm just glad it wasn't as overt as Captain Marvel. Oh god, that movie sucked. Like, I'm just a girl. Like, in all the movie sequences, those were a lot more direct with music. Thanks for sticking with me if you got through it. If you got this far, I truly thank you. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe. Give this video a like. Ring the bell for notifications. I make content like this, not in sequence, but but I'd like to make it more often. I enjoy your support. I really do. We can be a family, even if we're not related by blood. Thank you for tuning into All Day the Geek Way. I'm Jet, and please continue to enjoy your day the Geek Way, after 40 minutes especially.